Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join the Prime Minister in paying tribute to Trooper James Mundy, who was killed in Afghanistan last week, and to aid worker Gail Williams, who lost her life this week. I think the Prime Minister was right to pay such a fulsome tribute. Their deaths are a reminder of the sacrifices that our armed forces and humanitarian aid workers are making not only on our behalf, but also on the behalf of people in Afghanistan, and we pay tribute to their memory. In the first 6 months of the year, the government borrowed over £37 billion. In the first, at the end of a long boom, and just as the downturn is beginning, Britain has one of the biggest budget deficits in the industrialised world. Does the Prime Minister think that is a mistake?
Mr. Speaker, he just said on the radio a few days ago, borrowing goes up, that's inevitable, and you have to allow that to happen. Unfortunately, he'd said a few weeks ago, we have reached the limits of acceptable borrowing. He must make up his mind which side he is on this. The reason, Mr. Speaker, if I may explain to him, the reason, Mr. Speaker, we can afford to borrow is that we have low national debt. We have lower debt than America, than France, than Germany, than Japan and Italy. And I have to put it to him that it is the right thing to do, facing global financial problems, for the government to increase economic activity in the economy by borrowing to do so. Now, which side is he on? Is he on the side of what he said 2 weeks ago or the side of what he said a week ago?
Of course, borrowing goes up in a downturn. His problem is he racked it up to record levels before the downturn began. How can he possibly think it's right to go into recession with such a high level of debt? Why can't he just admit for once he got it wrong? And he keeps quoting the national debt figures. Let's look at what that doesn't include. Billions of pounds on PFI, Network Rail, pension liabilities. That's even before we get to Northern Rock, even before we get to Bradford and Bingley. He couldn't lecture the banks on borrowing because he was borrowing so much, and he cannot lecture them on transparency because he's hiding so much. Yes.
Order. Leader of the Opposition. Order. Mr. Teague, behave yourself.
They don't like being told that they're being governed by a master of dodgy accounting.
Order. Let the Leader of the Opposition speak. Order. Well, without interruption.
Half of the OECD went into the downturn with budget surpluses that they can use to cut taxes for families. Does he really have no regret at all that borrowing is so high just as the recession's beginning?
Mr. Speaker, we cut the level of debt in national income. We cut it from the level that we inherited from the Conservative Party. And is he really now saying that to finance Network Rail, we should close hospitals, we should close schools, we should close down the rest of the transport system? Because that is the implication of what he says. I just repeat to the House that net debt in the UK, on the IMF figures published a few weeks ago, 38%. France 55%, Germany 56%, Italy 101%, Japan 94%, and the USA higher at 46%. We have the ability to borrow to take ourselves through these difficult times. And may I just remind the Leader of the Opposition of what he said only a few days ago. People will want to see cross-party support rather than perhaps what we've seen in the United States of America, because we have to try and take public opinion with us for difficult decisions that may have to be taken. One thing one week, another thing the next week.